Scotland's future is up for debate, but in the run-up to next year's referendum, the question on most people's minds is not whether Scotland stays in the UK or not. It's, what kind of Scotland do we want to build, whatever the referendum outcome? Many voices are joining the debate and asking how we can make Scotland a fairer, more prosperous and more environmentally sustainable country. Last June, Compass brought some of the voices together in a one-day conference in Glasgow to discuss what would make a good Scotland and how we might bring it about.
It's a really important day for Compass in Scotland because Compass nationally in the UK is relaunching next week, and it's great that so many people have been willing to come out to talk about a good society and a good Scotland and think about how we take Compass, develop Compass here in Scotland. I think the kind of politics that Compass believes in, pluralist politics, actually is easier here in Scotland, perhaps in the kind of Westminster, because there is a more pluralist politics here in Scotland. And also, I think one of the things Compass is trying to do is make links between formal party politics and kind of informal community, grassroots type politics. And my sense is that that, again, is something that happens more here in Scotland and is easier to do. So I'm hoping very much that Compass will be influential and will help get this conversation going about how we build, we build a good Scotland.
Willie Sullivan opened the conference and welcomed the delegates. They had come from all over Scotland, belonged to various political parties and none, and had given up a day of rare sunshine to share their vision of what a good Scottish society might look like. The day was organised around a series of round table discussions with short contributions from invited speakers giving their particular take on what a good Scottish society might entail. In the first of these, Ruth Lister spoke to Compass's recent paper on social security for all. This generated animated debate at the tables about how we can protect the welfare state and reclaim the language of social security to mean well-being and freedom from insecurity for everyone. Compass Scotland has been working closely with the Reid Foundation recently in the context of its Common Weal project. Robin McAlpine led the second session of the conference with an introduction to the project and to its programme for the economic and social transformation of Scotland. Common Weal is an old Scots term meaning shared wealth and shared well-being. The STUC is developing a series of briefing papers and related discussions under the banner of A Just Scotland. Anne Henderson gave a flavour of these in her input to the Compass Scotland conference. There are strong synergies between the Common Weal project, the STUC campaign and Compass's own agenda. From fair economic distribution and taxation, through regeneration and quality affordable housing, well-paid work, supportive welfare, human rights and foreign policy, the shape of the Common Weal and a just Scotland is also that of a good Scotland. The second session of the day began by looking at the limitations of gross domestic product as a measure of economic performance. Catherine Trebeck presented Oxfam's Humankind Index as an example of economic measures that reflect the realities of ordinary people's lives and the values they prioritise. A good society needs an economy that performs at all levels of society, and it needs measures that ensures this outcome. Scottish Fabians have been looking at the so-called relational model of the state, in which services are provided with people rather than simply for them. In delineating the characteristics of the relational model, Daniel Johnson echoed what Compass would also hope to see in a good Scotland. Compass is all about inclusive policies and practices, and the essence of a good society is that it leaves no one behind. In her contribution to the conference, Sarah Beattie-Smith argued that British society has become less, not more, inclusive, and that interventions such as a citizen's income and participatory budgeting are examples of bold but effective ways of reversing this trend. Stimulating, as all our speakers' contributions were, the conference was primarily a space where delegates could discuss their own visions of a good Scotland. The importance of the day was in what each participant brought with them to the discussions and what they took away to share with others in the weeks and months that followed. Building a good Scottish society is, after all, a process, not an event. Naturally, next year's referendum was not far from people's thoughts. Scotland's future relationship with the UK naturally feels very pertinent to the question of how we might build the good society here. In the afternoon of the conference, we focused on the independence issue with a conversation between Patrick Harvie, MSP, leader of the Greens, Sarah Boyack, MSP, Shadow Minister for Local Government, and Esther Robertson, who was a key figure in the creation of the devolved Scottish Parliament. Together, they addressed the question of whether more devolution or independence would make it easier to create the good society in Scotland.
I think it's absolutely vital for Compass and everybody else who wants to be a participant in the debate about Scotland's future to be grounding that in what kind of society we want to be. What kind of Scotland are we and do we want to become in the 21st century? It's not enough for either side, yes or no, to be offering false promises or to be assuming that their solution will lead to utopia and the other side would lead to disaster. The truth is somewhere in between. The truth is that whichever choice we make about the Constitution, there's a whole heap of other choices that we have to make then about policy, about economics, about taxation, welfare, about every aspect of our society and our economy. We need to start that debate way before we get to the referendum, and I'm really glad that Compass has given it some momentum today. I was really happy to be here to contribute to the debate and to listen to the voices around the table, because in formal politics, in elected parliamentary politics, very often it's a lot of shallow posturing and people hunkering down to their own positions. We don't listen enough. And a debate like this, Compass was able to bring together people with a range of different views on the referendum and on Scotland's future, a range of different political traditions that people come from, broadly the left, but of different political parties and none, and actually to start sharing ideas, start infecting each other's imagination and debate with their different ideas. That's the kind of creativity that we've really got to see over the next year and a half and for years beyond.
I think the way that I think it was successful, that it brought people from different parties and organisations together to talk about good society. So there people from the Greens, people from SNP, people from Labour, people from no party, all thinking together about what a good society is and largely agreeing. I think we've got to build on that role of trying to connect people who agree on what a good society should be like. So that means between political parties, but also we need to link the formal part of the political system with the more informal part, the movements like UK Uncut, Occupy, and also NGOs like Oxfam and think tanks like the Reed Foundation.